G'day members, and welcome to our early edition for Caulfield, coming up on Saturday the 19th of September. It's looks at a really tough type of meeting on paper, this one, unlike last week, which looked really good. This one looks like it could be a bit tricky, but there looks a few good chances, a couple of good opportunities, and we'll no doubt get stuck into them, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens with a couple of races that look just almost impossible. So, yeah, yesterday was a tough day at Bendigo. We didn't find a winner. We had 0 top raters on the whole card get up, and obviously they've been something that's helped us get out of that hole we're in. They run at around 28.5% strike rate, and to sort of go through 8 races without, or eight races without a winner isn't abnormal in the scheme of things. When you're looking at figures, to have a run of 8 outs, but certainly it doesn't make it any more fun. So we had a shocker yesterday, but we just have to try and put that behind us and do our best to move on, because unfortunately we can't get that back. It's done. So on to the first race, and look, we've got Keener Ray here. This horse rates well on top. He's come off a couple of really strong wins, over 1,000 on the synthetic, and his figures certainly show that this horse has been quite a good improver into his second prep. So he's won his last 2 starts by a combined margin of 15 lengths and done it very easily. And look, depending on what figure we use, I can sort of get him anywhere from $2 to $2.50 on the figures, on the rating. So he's around the mark. I think the price is probably about right. The challenge for him is, can he do the same thing on the grass? I think he probably can. We've got Bassett here, and this horse resumes. He obviously was a strong winner over Kinglike on debut, when Kinglike came out and showed real good improvement first up, and won well last week. And then he was 1,100 to a mile and ran in that good Group 1 for the 2-year-olds in Brisbane, and it was only 2.5 lengths off a press statement. So, it's quite hard to not see this horse not being right in the finish. And then down the Mawahib, and look, he obviously has got a big win to his name over Demonstrate. It was a 4-length win, so it's sort of hard to really knock that. But in saying that, he was definitely, he handled the way that race was run. It really suited him. And if you sort of look at the sectionals, it was a big drop off in the middle, and the way it was set up, it was hard for anything to beat him. So he probably 4 lengths might have flattened him a little bit, but he did beat Demonstrate, and we have seen Demonstrate come out. So I think he's around the mark too, coming off a nice trial. But look, Keener Ray and Bassett are the ones that figure prominently at the moment, and we'll see how we go with them tomorrow. So there won't be a lot of early bets this week. On to the next race, and this is almost impossible, this one. What do you do in a race like this? We've got horses out of form, coming from everywhere. Then you find one that like Rhythm the Spare, that you think might run well, and it's got a poor rider on it from an inside gate, and it's going to get back. No matter where I looked at this race, there were landmines everywhere we look. So at this stage, it appears to be a race that I think I'd be happy to just avoid. They're really, no matter how long I've looked at this race, and that's why I'm a bit late getting out the newsletter and whatnot today, is because I just have spent hours looking at these races, and I haven't been able to answer a lot of questions. So race 2 at this stage is probably just going to be a pass. On to the third, and I think this probably isn't a bad sort of race. I think Caulfield has a really good chance. He resumed with a solid run at Bendigo. It was only a benchmark 70, but I sort of think it was a lot stronger than that race. Staviva beat him and has come out and since won on Wednesday at Pakenham, a winner for us. And obviously he finished his campaign off, Caulfield, with quite a dominant win in a benchmark 78 at Sales. So a lot stronger than 70 grade that last run Caulfield come through. Probably 4 to 5 lengths stronger, I'd say. And I think that this horse can work over and get into a nice spot and certainly back onto, what should be a firmer track. I think will suit this horse. Coram, he's been a horse that has sort of gone well and dropped off a couple of times, but he resumed with a really good run and chased home with a martyr at Cranbourne from off mid. He was, and that was a really good win. And again, we've seen a martyr come out and run really well. Again, that was a 70, and I think that you'll find that historically that run at Cranbourne will be a lot stronger than the 70 that it's rated there. And I thought Bradman's been going really well. He doesn't win a lot, obviously, but he's running quick times. Star Fortune comes off the synthetic, and it's running some pretty quick times and has some good form. And the other one we've got there is Malaguera. So pretty nice horse, this Malaguera. But if I take a line through a few horses, I think Caulfield's got it covered. And he has had, a month between runs. He's second up, 1100 to 1400. And he just looks like it might be a little bit hard for him, but he's certainly got the talent. So, look, I think Caulfield is the one that, we'd be likely to back here. And the reality is, between Malaguera, Bradman, Star Fortune, Collins Street and Coram there isn't a great deal between them. So we'll just have to play it by ear with those ones. On to the fourth race, and a really difficult race. Quite hard to really get a line on this race. We'll just start with Dainstrom and Mossbeat. They both come through the same race, and initially we thought they probably didn't go too hard, but the sectionals proved us wrong. They went way too hard, and what we've actually seen is a fair few flat runs come through that race. So, Dainstrom having the 3 weeks between runs, I think, is going to be a positive, and certainly Mossbeat probably just didn't run out the mile and got a pair too far back at Moonee Valley. The blinkers go on for the first time, back to 1400. It's rock hard fit. If Dainstrom does run them right along, Sadaj tries to, well, I think Sadaj might go back from the gate. Mossbeat could end up being right there. Lucky Largo was good, winning first up, and Ungrateful Ellen's one that I think can, she's always shown glimpses, but I think she might be able to stamp herself as a pretty good horse this prep. And the other one was Petite Diabolise. Oliver's on it, and look, it's going to get back. It can really rattle home a sectional, generally off a softer sort of speed, but it just does rate quite strongly across the board. So it would sort of be hard to totally can it. But look, it's just another really difficult race. Sardage is $2.80. The shortest I can get at $6 at the moment. So it's a bit of a head scratcher, and there's, as I said earlier, there's a few of them throughout the whole day. So it's a question of do we run the gauntlet and try and snag a couple of wins, or do we just sort of play it safe? And generally, when you run the gauntlet, it's because you can see a few diamonds in the rough, but there's no diamonds in the rough here. On to the fifth, and this looks probably a pretty good race. So I think Don't Tell Mama is coming off a good run at Moonee Valley. Look, it's it's been a horse that's been able to settle a bit closer to the speed and finish quite well. And last start at Moonee Valley, it just was a victim and had to get back and had really strong sectional. So if we sort of go and analyse the closing finish of the horses in this field, certainly don't doubt Mama has has the late burst that you want going up to 1400. It has the best overall class and speed rating, and from barrier 3, it gets a tick on the map. So it really looks like it's going to be quite hard to beat, and probably $374 is a pretty good price, I think. So it should go really well. Julietta, I think it'll drift this horse. The market will oppose it because the figures on the clock out of its last run weren't fantastic. But I think it's a bit of a hidden race. We can quite often see it with the 3-year-old fillies. They don't run time, and you just really need to focus on the class. And certainly there's a lot of good things happening through this race when we isolate and analyse the class figures. So I think that despite the fact that it's soft on the clock, it needs respect. And the other one, Sacred Eye, it was a real good debut runner. It ran its last 200 metres at Geelong, around 7.5 lengths above average, which was the equal quickest ever over 1,300 metres, which is quite an outstanding debut, really. I think the last horse, what was that? Atlantic Jewel, came through and ran some pretty quick sectionals there too. So wouldn't be surprised if this Sacred Eye measured right up. It's probably just a little bit short at the moment. But that's sort of where the race ends for me. I think that they're the three. Don't doubt Mama, Julietta, and Sacred Eye that are likely to be fighting the race out, and perhaps Pearl Star is the best at odds. On the race 6, excuse me. Look, this is another really difficult race. Look, they've backed Fell Swoop. It was handed the race last start. And, they walked to the 400. Every horse went 5 to 10 wide, and this thing just had to sprint home for 300 or 400 metres, not even. So very difficult to assess this horse. Its overall speed figure isn't dominant compared to the rest of the field, and certainly it doesn't have the class of some of these other runners. So what it does have in its favour is obviously its top rater. We know they go well, but it's half the price that we think it should be. So I've just got a little bit of a query on that. Charlie Boy, look, he, if we just sort of simply take a line through Boban last prep when he was up in Queensland, Boban's come down here and ran really well in 2 Group 1s. This certainly isn't a Group 1. It's hard to see this horse probably not being right in the finish, Charlie Boy. Java, he resumes. Whether or not 1,200 is going to be his go. He hasn't really stamped himself with an overall figure. That doesn't really bother me because he does have a lot of class. And as I said earlier, a lot of the times the 3-year-olds, they're lightly raced. They don't always have the opportunity to stamp themselves on the clock. But, he should run well. Look, Raw Rapture's a horse. I have to go back and just check these Tassie figures to make sure they're right. But certainly it's been able to run a bit of time in Tassie first up in the past. We've got the Bowler and Ullman, who I think are probably good chances also. So, you get a real good line through Ullman last prep up in Queensland, and the Bowler, he looks in for a really good campaign, and he's probably just going to keep improving as he gets out over further. 1,400 he may need at this level, but he'll be smashing the line. So again, just another little bit of a head scratcher. There's a lot of first up runners and a lot of queries. So it's sort of like we're back 3-4 weeks ago today. There's another group of horses coming through, and it's difficult. On the race 7, and here's a nice sort of race. So I think that Vézelay a little bit short. It follows the same pattern that followed last prep, 1400 back to 1200. The horse probably hasn't come on as much as I thought it would, and it still really needs to lift, I think, to win. I wouldn't be surprised if this horse didn't get to our price. I think it will, and I'm sure it'll run well. I think Tycoon Tara, it's if we sort of Vézelay aside, there's a lot of horses here that are first up or coming off moderately run races. With that in mind, should they go at a decent sort of clip here, I think, the race fitness could well come into play, in particularly if it's, favouring sort of the horses up on the speed. And Vézelay, with the 3 runs, and certainly Tycoon Tara off that real good 1,000-metre hit out behind Chautauqua, that really, I think, is a strong form reference for this race. And I think, the $859 available is probably a really good price, especially if we sort of cast our eye back to last prep, where she was dominant early on and through the middle part of her campaign around this trip. And she has beaten most of this field home last prep. Hazard, the gate's an issue. It's going to get back. Probably a decent sort of tempo. Politeness, look, it's probably the horse I like the most out of the first uppers. Whale, it's sort of hard not to like it. It's first up also, but Politeness could just be a good improver again. Griante's coming off a couple of soft runs, and look, Miss Steele's one that's there at odds. She put in a real big run last prep and beat most of these home. Whether or not she can do it here, I'm not sure, but certainly she's won at odds. But look, it's it's again another difficult race, and at this stage, possibly Tycoon Tara could be worth a little each way play, and then we can sort of assess what we'll do later on. Yeah, this is a tough race. Another really tough race. So look, just with Bold Sniper, it's hard in the market. I sort of struggled to line this horse up on its first up run. What do you do? Okay, at SP short, but who says that was right? I can't help but think that the market's probably just got this one wrong, and this horse will drift. I think $7, $8 is poison. So, and Parnham's on, which, with all due respect to him, it isn't. We're not adding lengths for Parnham going on. So, I'm not sure what to do with that horse. But look, I thought Magnapel, Gree Carrow won this race last year. It was a fit horse, sort of down in the weights, third up, and we've got 2 of those horses here, and they're really hitting the line quite well, aren't they? So, Magnapel, he had a really good win over Iggy McCall, and if you sort of do your form and look at Iggy McCall and whatnot, you get a pretty good line through this race. It's a good measure. It's hard to sort of see him not being right in the finish. 2,000, hard track, no weight, the horse is flying, maps well. He's going to be there for a long way. His danger's probably if they go too hard, and then a horse just has a bit of a sit on him. So we just have to see what happens there. The United States, look, no doubt this horse has got the overall measures to be really, competitive here. The little query with him is how hard they went at Moonee Valley, and he's only had 2 weeks off. So it could be an absolute gutbuster. And, I think that the Wally Yard probably got a Basso wrong last start, backing him up in 7 days off a run like that. It certainly, came out and failed miserably, a Basso. So, he did come with a bit of a wide run from back, but the horse was beaten 11.5 lengths, and, he just wasn't able to pick his feet up late. So, he was beaten by Iggy McCall. So we get a line through Iggy McCall here with Magnapel. So I really think Magnapel's right up there. Sartorius, I thought his run was fantastic first up. He he rated well on my end on a couple of things, but I just had to risk him first up, from that wide gate. But look, this horse has been able to jump in trip and run well. I just, can't help but think the horses are run short though. But he has to be right in the mix. But I think he's a run short. Our Ivanhoe, the horse has got very good form overseas. His run in Adelaide wasn't all that bad. At decent sectionals and a recent big trial winner. Let's Make a Deal's a horse that I think can improve back on better ground. Caulfield's got barrier 20 and it's done a bit of travelling recently. And then the race drops right off. You can probably make a case for a lot of these, but you probably have to look quite hard when, there's probably a couple of good horses there that are running really well called Magnapel in the United States. So they're the obvious, and it may well be an obvious type of race. So we'll see what we do there late. And then the last is, I've just found this impossible. It's given me a headache. I might have to go and take a nap for half an hour after this recording, because this race gave me a big headache. Look, Sailing By comes through the race. Julietta comes through, and again, it's not really hard on the clock, but there's some pretty good class figures coming out subsequent to that race. So I think it'll run well. Assertive Star's a horse we backed at Sandown, and I think he probably could have almost won. It just sort of didn't quite go his way, and I'd be very keen to have a real good go at this horse. He was 50-1 last week, but didn't make the field, and they haven't missed him this week. He's under $10 now, which is probably rock bottom, because just the style of horse, I don't think barrier 1 really is going to be his go. So just whether he can get the breaks, he's going to need a lot of luck. But we'll sort of play it by ear. Del Piero can run well. Kentucky Flyer. Look, there's a lot here that we don't know a lot about. They're from good stables. They're open the big upside. They don't have the exposed figures yet. What do we do here? I'm not sure. So, look, it's quite a challenging day. I'd be pretty keen, just to recap, to get involved at this stage in race 1. I'd be happy to pass in race 2. Happy to bet in race 3. At this stage, I'd be happy to pass race 4. Be happy to have a go in race 5. Race 6, query. Be happy to have a go in race 7, and be happy to have a go in race 8. So there's 5 there out of the 9 that we'd be happy to have a look at, and we'll play it by you with the rest. So all the best. Hope that helps, and just prepare for a bit of a quiet day tomorrow. But once we obviously get these horses with runs under their belts, it'll help us in the future. So thanks for listening, and all the best.